Join thepact.com and pledge to never drink and drive. A message from Kenya Breweries Limited. This is NTV.
Good evening, my name is Mark Masai and this is time for Press Pass. This is what we have lined up for you.
If they are men enough, let them come forward and face me. Let them not hide behind shadows and behind telephone calls.
Years after the handshake, and things seem to be changing in the leadership into BBI, and now the narrative is impeachment. Who is shaping this narrative?
On Sunday at 11 o'clock, we will be carrying out a simulation of a real case at Bagathi.
There will be a simulation of the real case, but is a real story being told by the media and getting the picture to the nation and to the citizens as to the status of preparedness of the nation? Let me walk a bit closer to my guests. Not a stranger to the panel, Sylvia Mwichuli, who is a communication strategist and a former journalist here at the Nation Media Group, at the Daily Nation to be exact. And next to her is the digital strategist or secretary, he calls himself, of State House. That is Dennis Itumbi. And next to his good friend is Patrick Gadara. I don't know why he's laughing at that, but Patrick Gadara, not a stranger to the panel. He is also a cartoonist. He is also a media critic and not a stranger to this panel. All will be lending their views to this discussion tonight. And yes, we of course have been talking about, or started with a focus on the handshake, having come 2 years now, at least on Monday, since the handshake. But something else is facing the nation, and that is the outbreak of the coronavirus, which has been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. So the country is preparing itself, or seemingly preparing itself, and the CS for Health, beg your pardon, that is Mutai Kagwe, said that there will be a drill this coming Sunday. So if you see anything online, do not believe it if you see it in the name of fake news being spread that, oh my goodness, there's panic, there's something happening at Mbagathi. This is what he had to say earlier.
On Sunday at 11 o'clock, we will be carrying out a simulation of a real case at the Bagathi Hospital. It's an exercise, it's a test case for a real situation happening and what we do when that happens. Beginning tomorrow, all counties are going to start practicing again the same simulations for this exercise to know, in the event of an outbreak, what do we do?
So expect that on Sunday, just a heads up, and it is our duty to let the people know what will be happening in terms of preparedness to face this, any likelihood of an outbreak or case being confirmed here in Kenya, as it is, of course, a pandemic globally right now. And something else that played out yesterday, and when the health committee, the joint health committee, sat with the minister who's just spoken, and they were trying the toll-free number to see the number that you have been given. I don't know if it's reached you, but the number that has been given to all Kenyans to call in case of an emergency. If someone feels they have the symptoms of coronavirus, what procedure they should follow. This is what played out yesterday.
So it's here, so don't say it doesn't work, so it's ringing so that we hear the response. We are here, all of us.
Indeed.
So now, if I have coronavirus...
Try the other one.
Okay, that's the first one. So that one, the one I called was 0800721316. So that's the response. The other one is... That is a toll-free one. So that's the one that all Kenyans received. So the other one is 07
0732
32, yes.
353
353
535.
535. But that is not toll free, yeah?
This is not toll free.
So it's okay. That's the second one. It's not. I think we are the people's representative, isn't it? So this is the number we are giving.
Are they too busy or people?
Yeah.
And we don't have a coronavirus case yet. Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
I wanted to report a case of coronavirus.
This is when I'm for reporting about issues concerning coronavirus.
Who am I speaking to?
I'm Jackson Jerome.
Okay. Now, what am I supposed to do?
Regarding what?
Coronavirus, I feel like I have the symptoms.
You see?
Like I have the symptoms.
That you're having symptoms.
Yes.
Now, we can't have the coronavirus in the country unless you tell us how you could have contracted the.
Well, she laughed, and it's not quite a laughing matter if indeed there is an actual case. And it was, call it a drill, if you may, of how the responders would react in terms of making a call, a distress call, and the instructions that should follow. I'm not sure if any one of us have tried that number, but it is our duty as well as a media, hand in hand with the government, to work at informing the public. And I'll start with you, Sylvia, with this very important issue that is now a pandemic. Have we treated it with the seriousness that it deserves and done our job?
Well, I think this is an unprecedented health challenge. So as much as it may seem like we haven't done 100%, I just want to really appreciate the new CS, because he's really aggressively tried to address the issue since he came on board. It's just been a couple of weeks, but we see him every day trying to solve the issue. But in my opinion, there's a lot that needs to be done, particularly to inform the rest of Kenya exactly what is going on. For example, if you go to a village and talk about coronavirus, you might find people don't even understand what it is. So the communication that has been done, I think there's been some effort to send out SMSs and all that. Yes. But we need to remember that most of the country cannot read SMSs. We also need to remember that majority of Kenyans don't speak English. So if you're sending out an SMS in English, it means you're not actually reaching a huge number of people. So I think the communication strategy really needs to look at how to reach down to the mashinani. I'm delighted to hear the CS talk about having activations in all counties, but we need to remember that you're talking about the cities and the towns. Who is reaching the ordinary mwananchi mashinani? How will the ordinary mwananchi mashinani know about that toll-free number? I know it's a difficult situation they were in, because if you're giving out a number and it works out that the number is not working, it means that there's a huge challenge. But I believe that was just a glitch. I believe the ministry has their heart in the right place, and I believe that they're doing the right things. However, it's not just about getting yourself ready medically. You need to look at the prevention side. What is happening on the prevention side? Until today, flights have still been coming in from all over the place. So I feel that while the Ministry of Health is trying to really, get itself organized, there's a side in government that is not doing as well to try and prevent the virus from coming in.
Yes, and for media, as a custodian of information for the public?
Yes, I think the media have done, I don't want to say they've done well. I think they've done their bit, but the challenge we have is that the other stories that are taking precedence over this very critical story. So for example, the BBI story is taking precedence and the mind space and the time away from this very critical story. If we get one case of coronavirus in this country, nothing else will matter. Not the politics, not whatever is going on in terms of this succession battle that is going on. If we get one case of coronavirus, our country is going to just be in a mess, because me as an ordinary Kenyan, I don't know what to do. So I think the media need to do more in helping Kenyans to understand what steps they need to take just should the eventuality happen.
We've heard from a communication strategist who's also a journalist in training. Dennis, as a digital strategist, let me call you that, is the media doing its part in spreading
All right,
information?
Mark, let me start by passing a word of condolence to the entire NTV family on the loss of Nzioki, the video editor here, Poleni Sana. Now, on COVID, let me first respond by saying this. When the same question was put to Klopp, the coach of the great Liverpool team, he said that, you know, my work is to coach, and some things are better answered by medical experts because my business is to coach. Having said that, Kenya has 18 entry points. As of this moment, the 18 entry points are manned, and there is thermal check for everyone getting into Kenya. In terms of bed capacity, level 5 and level 6 hospitals across Kenya have been asked to set aside at least 20 beds, and all of them have not only set aside but confirmed with the ministry that has happened, and that's why you hear the minister saying that from tomorrow there is simulation happening in the counties. On logistics, in terms of drugs, that has been taken care of. If this moves to a level that it is declared an epidemic of high proportion, then there is also masks that can cater for every Kenyan already in stock.
That, yeah.
On March 15, that Sunday, all the 70 facilities that are currently prepared to handle this issue will be checked, and to check whether indeed what they have said is what is happening on the ground. And that now brings me to what the media needs to do. The media then needs to check whether the 18 entry points, are there actually thermal checks? The beds you're talking about, the logistics you're talking about, the media needs to send a camera there as opposed to turning themselves into Ruto dailies and trying to only cover what the deputy president is doing. Then finally, I've heard something about the insurance, an insurance story that has gone round that insurance is saying they will not be able to cover this. I think it's important, again, for the media to look at what laws governs this, because it's not an epidemic until it is declared under Section 63 of the Public Health Act.
It's actually a pandemic now,
a
so
pandemic,
that is beyond.
No, that's WHO.
Yes.
But it has to be declared by the minister under our laws. And that's my challenge to you, Mark.
And the World Health Organization, of course, the Ministry of Health, even in dealing with this particular issue, has been working hand in hand with the WHO.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that it overrides our laws.
So in your view, if the WHO would declare this a pandemic,
and then the Ministry of Health has to back that up with Section 63, more like the way you have to do a Kenya Gazette even after you have appointed someone. It doesn't necessarily override. I'm actually challenging you as media to look at what is the procedure of having this move into, and as a Kenyan government, has the Section 63 been applied of the Public Health Act? That's my challenge to the media, because you're discussing coverage. We're not discussing the pandemic and how it's treated, because that is not our province.
Yes. But I mean, you call yourself system of facts, so it's about, I mean, if you go with the authority, World Health Organization, that is fact from them. You wouldn't really
I will leave that to your
it.
newsroom meeting tomorrow, because you're the media. You're not trying me to get into your media house.
No, I'm talking about, because they are a source. In telling these stories, we go by sources. And in this particular one, the WHO is a source. And it's not one to just
and I've told you, Mark,
wish away.
I've told you, Mark, I am not wishing away the WHO.
Yes.
They have declared this a global thing, and I mean, I don't
Pandemic,
take WHO lightly.
Yes.
I'm only asking you, if WHO, in the same things that you're asking me, if WHO has declared it, has the Kenyan government applied Section 63 of the Public Health Act, which is what is required under our laws to get some things moving on? And by the way, I'm sure you haven't read Section 63 of the Public Health Act. Take some time after press pass, read it, then you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Then
in this particular issue, because it seems you want to outshine someone in terms of how much you've read. I'm just going by the fact of WHO having declared this a pandemic, and the seriousness of it, and you can see the government is moving. So not getting lost in the detail of, has the government declared it in this particular way? They have already, they're calling in drills countrywide.
Mark, you are absolutely unfair to say I'm trying to compete or outshine anyone. I have no interest in outshining anyone. Why would I want to outshine anyone on COVID-19? For what purpose and for what good?
System your facts. You've
So
spoken,
finally,
yes.
I would to say that insurance policies are basically legal contracts. So it makes sense for them to speak about what they are speaking about. But what I'm trying to tell you is for these legal contracts, for them to be effective, it is also application to the law. What stops someone going to court tomorrow using a section in our Kenyan law to say that this is not a pandemic? So basically what I'm actually challenging you to do is what media should do.
Yes, and it has actually, and we have spoken to IRA who have confirmed that going by their rules and internationally, they, when anything is declared a pandemic and we're going by their standards, and so if we diagnose a case in Kenya and it goes by the WHO standards, then it falls under that category of not being covered because of the risk of being covered under insurance.
I do not object.
And that's a story that we have done. So I'm just letting you know, perhaps that's also something you've missed. Gadara, to you, as you watch this play out, over the last month, let's talk about month because it's escalated in the last 2 weeks. What's your view of this?
Well, I think we've got to be, to understand that the way this has been moving, we're not going to be immune from it. It's going to come. It's a matter of when, not if it's going to come. And I think the question we should be asking is whether we are ready, we are prepared for it. One of the problems that has been there, in my view, is that a government has really concentrated on containment, on trying to stop the virus coming in, but not so much about preparing for it getting here.
Yes.
I think in the case of especially preparing the population, for what's going to come. So, for example, they're doing this simulation exercise. Is it on Sunday?
Yes.
So what are we supposed to do? If a case was declared tomorrow, what is the public expected to do? Now, don't forget, people are watching the news. They're seeing what's happening in other countries. What's going to stop us having a run on supermarkets all of a sudden because everybody expects there's going to be a shortage? At what point do we say, all right, we are going to stop kids going to school? Is it when the case is found? Do they have to wait till government declares it?
Yes.
etc. It's this. It's fantastic and it's good to prepare the health system. You've got to prepare the people for it, and that's the first thing. I think, secondly, and it's a bit related to this, when it comes to the whole idea of containment, the WHO had a very interesting press briefing last Friday, and they said why they hadn't at the time declared it a pandemic.
Yes.
And they said essentially that would be tantamount to throwing in the towel on containment, is accepting we can't contain it, we move to mitigation. And that's what this declaration means. Is basically move to mitigation, start asking, do we have the facilities to test for this? And how many do we have? If we only have the one, or two, where are they? What happens if you have a case outside of Nairobi, etc.? What's going to happen? Do we have the facilities to track, to trace contacts that people who may have the illness, the people they've come into, and to secure those within it. Testing is also an important thing when you think about cost. Is it going to be free? So if you look at places like Singapore and South Korea, where they've implemented quite a huge testing program, it's all free.
Yes.
You walk in, you get tested. If we start imposing costs, then means people won't go to get tested, even when they suspect they might have. And brings me to another thing that was in Sabina Chege's call. She was told, go to the hospital. Now, lots of the advice I've been saying from experts is saying, if you have COVID, don't go to the hospital. Or if you suspect you have it, don't go to the hospital. Why? Because you are going into a place where people are already, their immune systems are already probably compromised. They've got other illnesses, etc. So do we have a system where they can call in and get advice? There, where we can actually deal with guys without exposing a huge, a wider population.
Are these questions you've seen well articulated in our coverage?
No, they're not. And this is my problem, is our media is not looking at these issues. They're not looking at how prepared we are as a society, not just about whether we are training people,
yes,
but as a society, are we ready for it? You know?
Where do we balance that questioning, even the authorities, and how they're prepared and not causing a panic?
May I say just one last thing? Dennis spoke about thermal testing at entry points. According to the WHO, this will only catch about 50% of cases. You know, now it's not to say it's not necessary. It is, but it is not a foolproof method by any means. You know, so relying on this, that it's going to stop the virus coming in, is not going to help us. Banning flights is not going to help us. You know, that virus is coming. The question is whether we are ready for it, and I don't find that we are asking the questions, those particular questions of government.
How do we balance that in our duty not to make the public panic?
Yeah, I think it's very important to note that there are two sides to this story. There's that one side where we need the health system to be ready, the drills they're doing, all the stuff they're doing. But on the other side is the ordinary mwananchi, who needs to be very clear that if I know of anyone or I feel certain, mwananchi doesn't even know which symptoms you're talking about. So if somebody has the flu today, you know, I had a story about this pastor in Nigeria who was preaching in church, and then he started coughing. And then he started his address by telling people that he's just come back from China, and in a minute there was nobody in church, you know. So that story is a joke, but you think about it. How does an ordinary mwananchi know they have COVID? Do they even know the symptoms? Do they know when you're talking about, you know, your temperature going up and all that, what does it even mean to the ordinary person sitting in Kakamega, where I come from? So at the end of the day, you need to ensure that wananchi are on top of it as well in terms of the information. So what we expect from the media right now is to be helping the wananchi to understand, number one, if you have these symptoms, this is what you need to do. Yeah, you need to call this person, you need to call this helpline, you need to do X, or you need to do Y. Just imagine today if it was announced that there was a case of COVID in Kibera. What do you think is going to happen there? There's going to be, you know, everybody's going to run and everybody's going to be, so people need to understand that by keeping the wananchi in the dark, we're actually running a risk.
Would there be wisdom if indeed there's a case suspected in a particular area, and because of the ramifications, we decide to keep it hush as we try to contain it? Would that be advisable?
I think there needs to be a lot of wisdom in how all these things are handled, and that is why equipping wananchi with information on what it means if you found out your neighbor has COVID, what exactly are you supposed to do? Equipping us with that knowledge and information will be very helpful in case of the eventuality.
And don't forget, trying to keep it harsh is what actually made this such a huge issue, you know, in China.
Yes, in China.
You know, so you've got to trust your people with information, and you've got to give it to them. You've got to tell them this is what you're facing. You know, the thing is, with containment, what containment has done is to slow down the virus. You know, and that has bought us some time. You know, how we have used that time. You know, for me is what is problematic. Have we used it to prepare? I haven't seen that. You know, so I think until we actually get to a point where we start demanding of government that we want to see, we want to understand, what is your scenario planning? You know, so tell us. I mean, there is a national contingency plan. Where is it? Put it online. Tell people here, this is what we are thinking. This is what we are planning for. You know. So then people know how to prepare themselves. You know, tell them, you know, this is what we'll do to mitigate if there's a problem at the supermarket.
There's a lot.
It is not just about the final thing. It's not just about the health. You know, when it comes to mitigation, you're not just looking at the health system, etc. There are issues to consider there. So, for example, we talk about symptoms. Most of people are not going to feel symptoms. You know. Or at least they're going to have very mild symptoms, you know. But if you tell everybody with the flu to suddenly go to the hospital, you're just going to flood the system. You know, so you've got to have a plan for what do they actually do. You know, and I'm not seeing that being articulated. And then secondly, it's about preparing the society as a whole. If, for example, we say we are going to ban all flights, as the US has said, for example, you know, you're going to have people out of jobs.
Yes.
Very quickly. These are things you've got to mitigate.
Yes.
And you've got to be thinking, is it proportional to what we are expecting?
Exactly.
So I gave the example of South Korea and Singapore. You're not having these sorts of reactions, but that's because they put in other measures to mitigate. Testing, contact tracing, etc. So I'm thinking that if we do that, if we actually were able to put our resources to where our mouth is, then we'd actually be able to mitigate quite a lot of the problems this will bring.
Lots of questions to ask about this one, and that's why we treated it as a first item on this episode. But we need to sanitize our hands because we're getting into the handshake after this break. Stay with Press Pass.
Nana Small Thika invites all to our annual Car Bazaar Expo on 3rd to 5th April 2020. Come touch, feel, and drive away with your dream car. Come meet the experts, motor dealers, and motor solution companies for all your enquiries. Great display by the best exhibitors include Vika Motor Dealers, TMD, Isuzu, among others. Great offers during the event. Lots of food, drinks, and fun for the whole family while you shop. Free entry for all. To book a stand, call 0780-498-864. Anana Small Thika. Shoppers Paradise.
Sasa Wakenya mnajifanya mutaki hii pesa. Malaria inaumalizanga na how much? Hata waje hiyo. Unajua mtu anaweza kataa hiyo 400k alafu ukufe njaa.
We don't look at what we eat. We just eat to keep on going.
Kianza alisema alitumia 700k, right?
Yeah, for the whole
wewe nitafute utaenda kupeleka mbio upoteze hiyo.
Welcome home to Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
The city of Nairobi, a concrete jungle. Whether in the upmarket or mid to low tier markets, housing was everyone's dream. We all wanted a piece of the pie, and then it began to unravel.
Welcome to today's auction sale.
How did we get here?
If you buy a house, it will always appreciate. That's nonsense according to standard economics.
Why people invest in property? Sometimes they never even look at the yield.
How bad is the situation?
For 4 consecutive quarters, we've seen negative prices.
Is there any way out of this mess?
It's a good time to start talking about repurposing some of these buildings.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
As the world battles a wave of misinformation about the new coronavirus, we fact-check some of the claims widely shared online.
Now, which kind love this? We hear from a Sierra Leonean musician on how he battled a fake HIV story.
We debunk fake news from the baking world by testing some kitchen hacks with billions of views online.
And are Africans immune to the new coronavirus?
I can say true.
False.
False. Sure.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
As the world battles a wave of misinformation about the new coronavirus, we fact-check some of the claims widely shared online.
Now which kind love this?
We hear from a Sierra Leonean musician on how he battled a fake HIV story.
We debunk fake news from the baking world by testing some kitchen hacks with billions of views online.
And are Africans immune to the new coronavirus?
I can say true.
False.
False.
True.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Welcome back. It has been 2 years, at least by March 9th, since the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, at the steps of Harambee House. And many people now are questioning what value it's brought to the nation, as it was sold as a unifying initiative, and it's given birth to the BBI, and now the narrative and the twists in all this have changed, especially on the political field. So we asked people what they felt, if the handshake has been a positive for them.
Handshake inasema mwananchi amefaidika kwa sababu first thing there is peace in the country.
So it has led to political division among the Kenyans. So there is no benefits. It is an individual benefits of which it is an opposition benefit now. So it has come inside the house and it has broken everything.
Hiyo handshake ya Honorable Uhuru na Honorable Raila, mimi naona haijafaidi, tuseme haijafaidi, maana bado tuko hapa, hatuoni tuseme maendeleo, hatuoni yenyewe, locust ndio hizo zimejazana, hakuna kitu afanyika. Corona yenyewe ndio hiyo pia, tuasikia fununu, hakuna kitu. Sasa mimi ya handshake mimi sijui, maybe akuja nisalimie mimi, tukama tunaona kama itafaidiana.
This is about two individuals who have their followers and they want to remain relevant after 2022. So it's no longer about us, it's no longer about the grassroots people, it's about power.
Njama ya hii handshake ilikuwa ya kuhakikisha kwamba Bwana Ruto ametolewa pale, na kwa hivyo tusidanganyane hapa, huu ni mwaka wa kuambiana ukweli. Hii handshake ni kati ya Raila na Uhuru Kenyatta.
Handshake ni kitu maana sana kwa Kenya itself, kwa sababu tangu Mr. President Uhuru Kenyatta na Raila Odinga wamefanya urafiki kwa handshake, imesaidia hata watu wengi in terms of politics.
Handshake, kusema ukweli, handshake imeleta manufaa hapa Kenya. Tumeona amani, hata kama pesa hakuna, lakini amani ndio kitu muhimu.
Since the handshake, people are now united, and it is good that we can now move from place without looking aside who is who and who is who.
Walikuwa na nia nzuri wakileta handshake, lakini wanasiasa watapeli wengine wameileta uhasama zaidi ya kuleta mapigano baina ya viongozi wengine.
Handshake ilileta amani, ndio imeleta amani, lakini haijatusaidia sisi kwa jumla, na kama itaendelea kukua vile iko, ni kama inagawa tena nchi, haijatuweka pamoja vizuri.
Hii handshake imeleta manufaa, kumekuwa na utulivu Kenya, biashara zinaendelea kila miji, watu wametangamana kila mahali.
The handshake not be there, Raila could be moving this country from center, from this corner to the other corner, from left, center, right.
It's been one of the best things that happened in this country. We do appreciate.
because the two warring camps came together, whether for political gain or for whatever reasons that they had in mind. It was something that was a good concept.
Bapa Raila Odinga na President Uhuru Kenyatta tangu walete handshake, sisi kama wananchi tumefaidika mengi sana kupitia handshake.
Kama ingekuwa handshake ya Wakenya wote wangeita Ruto ili wapate kufanya handshake pamoja, kwa sababu Uhuru na Ruto walikuwa pamoja. Na siku moja hiyo Raila akakuja kuchukua Uhuru akaenda kufanya handshake peke yake bila Ruto. Sasa hii imeharibu kabisa serikali yetu, imeharibu kabisa maendeleo yetu katika Kenya.
Hakuna, hiyo ni kuharibu kabisa. Hiyo ni karibu Kenya kabisa, hiyo ni haribu Kenya kabisa tangu Uhuru na nani narudiana, Kenya imeharibika. Wakati Ruto na Uhuru iko pamoja, tuko sawa.
Handshake hiyo ni njia moja ya kutafutia watu vyeo. Na kwa sasa hata kwa wananchi wa Kenya kwa sasa tunaona maisha inaendelea kuwa ngumu.
That's the say of the people on the ground on this, or at least a handful of the people. And so let me throw it to the panel as they have been following what they've heard and whether it is our place to call out the handshake for what it has been or what it has become. Start with you, Patrick.
Well, I think it is definitely the media's place to question the things that it is told. You know, and unfortunately, I don't think it's a role it plays very well. I think, and I've said this many times before, that our media is more focused on the drama of politics rather than the substance of it. I think when we look at the handshake 2 years down the line, we should be asking, you know, was it really meant for us? I mean, one of the people there says it's no longer about us, but from the beginning, was it ever about us? You know, what problem was it solving? You know, what's the problem we had with the 2017 election or the other elections that we have is the credibility of the electoral system. Now, if you look at the handshake, at the BBI report itself, it's very thin on proposals for fixing that system. You know, so it's multiplying positions for people, but it's not saying, you know, what happens, I mean, the system that's actually going to put them in those places, how are we going to fix it? You know, it's amazing to me that if you look at what the IEBC had said, it said any changes to the electoral system have to be in place 2 years before the election. This is what the IEBC had said. You know, that means by August of this year, we should have changes to the electoral system already in place. But there is no debate about what those changes are going to be.
Yes.
You know, we are all captured by the political drama. And that's what the media is privileging, that's what they're talking about, Raila versus Ruto. But we are not actually fixing the problem. It is the stolen elections that have actually almost taken this country down the route of a civil war. You know, it's not about positions, you know, it's about the stealing of elections. And we, without concentrating on fixing the electoral system, anything else that we do, I think, is just going to be window dressing.
Yes. For what it is right now, how would you call it?
Well, first let's say the handshake initially was good. However, after that, there has been two products of the handshake. So there is a BBI that was launched at Bomas as a product of the handshake. That is the Uhuru handshake. Then there is a BBI at Narok, which is the Raila handshake. So the product from the handshake has then mutated. You would say that the BBI has become a moving target. So that then what is acceptable to the larger population was done at Bomas, and I didn't hear any opposition. In fact, at the time, there was even a call that it gets to Parliament that it would be passed in record time. So what we're involved right now, as Gadara calls it, is shenanigans, political theater, and media melodrama. Because especially where we are seated, the Daily Ruto, aka the Nation, has made BBI rallies become about William Ruto, even when he does not attend those things. Because, I mean, if these BBI rallies represented the wishes of the presidency, the president and the deputy president would attend. Their absence tells you something. that they were opposed to these rallies from the beginning, but one partner decided to push it to the end.
So
that
if
is one
even
point.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is opposed to this, to the rallies?
To the rallies, yes. That is why he's not attending them.
Okay.
Number two, the BBI is a product of election losers. People who have a tendency of not accepting election losses.
Even the BBI bombers is a product of election losers? You said that it has been accepted by all?
Yes, although it was acceptable. Though it is a product of election losers. You see, something can be bad but acceptable. Just like, you see, let me not get too much on that. The other thing is, let me finish. Gadara, when you say that, I was quiet. So allow me to finish, and then you always take it up.
I hopefully was not saying things that are objectionable as what you're saying.
Let me finish, and then you take it up. I was quiet when you're doing your presentation.
Okay, you're saying something can be bad, but acceptable.
No.
That's what you said.
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
That election losers in this country, and we know them by name, Raila Odinga, has never conceded an election defeat in this country. And he has always had something that mutates as a moving target to become something that is a handshake between the election winner and himself to get a position. In this case, he even swore himself. Instead of being arrested by DCI for participating in a crime, he went into a handshake because he had in mind a BBI rally like the one which was in Narok to kick out some people outside Narok.
So are you claiming that the president would shake his hands knowing that he should be arrested by the DCI? I mean,
as I said, the handshake initially was good. The mutation, the moving target character of the handshake is where I am. And by the way, the continuous coverage, especially by this newsroom, has taken us away from the focus of the content of BBI, which was acceptable at Bomas, and has taken us into a political theater where it is everything about Ruto. I mean, move from Mombasa, go to Kitui, go to Kakamega. What were the issues that were raised there? The ostrich JRC. In Mombasa, it was about historical land injustice. When you go to Kakamega, it is the same frame of the character of the ODM campaign. It is absolutely, when you go to Mombasa, tell them what they want to hear about land and historical injustice. When you go to Kakamega, tell them about Mumias. When you go to,
these are issues that
when you go to Narok,
yeah,
guys, you know,
it's,
everybody.
Granted,
you know, you never interfered with Gavaro when he was presenting. Please allow me to do my presentation. Then you can always ask after questions.
Yes.
At the end of the day, the handshake prescribed a solution to calm the nation at the time when it happened. What has happened after the handshake is that some communities are going to be kicked out of Narok. How is that handshake?
All right, he's made his contribution as you were following.
I think, let me just say this. I think that when the handshake started out, we even had a conversation here about the fact that it had some very, very critical issues that it was addressing, particularly when it came to issues that affect Kenyans at the grassroots. And one of the things that really came out in the handshake was issues to do with employment, issues to do with poverty, issues to do with dealing with historical injustices, issues to do with inclusion. These are some of the things that the handshake was supposed to address. Unfortunately, as my colleagues have said, in the course of time, the political issues have taken precedence over the critical issues that made Kenyans support the handshake. And I think the media has a role to play to keep on reminding the protagonists in this situation that at the end of the day, the BBI was supposed to help Kenya to get over some of these very critical challenges. So in my view, the thing that was a very good thing is actually being taken advantage of. And what is really, really saddens me is the fact that we even have people who are supposed to be dealing with very serious corruption cases, you know, coming to the center of this whole thing and operating like they're the ones who own it. So I think as a country, we had an opportunity to turn around some of the historical injustices using this process. And if we're not careful, the politicians are going to take it over and make it a political process, when it was indeed a process that was supposed to sort out some of the critical concerns that we have. So in my opinion, I feel like there's still a chance. It's all is not lost. When I was watching some of the presentations that were being made to the BBI team, indeed, a lot of people came and talked about issues that are very critical. And I hope that when the team sits down to look at the presentations that were made and come up with the final report, that they will actually take consideration of the reason why the handshake was there in the first place. Okay. And the fact that the BBI wasn't just about politics. Yeah, there were 9 whole areas, and many of them had to do with, you know, moving Kenyans' lives forward. So,
but there's always the point of the constitution that we have already, yes, if implemented, would be able to sort most of the troubles, yes, that are facing the nation.
Yes.
So in that sense, as we let the Kenyans know whether this is good or bad for them, just tell them the truth, yes, that what we have right now, the constitution, can work for you.
Yes.
I mean, what we have is a charade. The whole thing from handshake, BBI, whatever. I completely disagree with these guys. It is a charade, you know. If you look at why Odinga and Kenyatta needed to shake hands, you know, at the root of it was a disputed election, you know. If you look at 2007, why Odinga and Kibaki needed to shake hands, at the root of it was a disputed election. After the 2007 election, we came up with a whole bunch of proposals, the Kriegler report, on how we address and fix that system. Things like historical injustices, you know, we had a TJRC report. In fact, we had an entire Agenda 4, yes, that dealt with these things. You know, so what these two were trying to do with handshake is basically to hijack that conversation and to say that no, we will give you the 9 things we think are important. You know, and then we're all going to discuss our problems within those. What if we disagreed with those 9? So for me, I think that what the handshake and BBI have done is to hide from Kenyans the real roots of their issues, of their problems. You know, and the primary, one of the really important ones, is this electoral system that nobody seems to have, or very few people seem to have faith in. You know, we are the first country in the world to have an election annulled, you know, a presidential election, not the first, I think probably second or third, you know, but it's very, very rare, you know. And the fact that our own Supreme Court said that election was not credible should have had us sit back and think, you know, how do we fix this? You know, and as I said, time is running out.
Yes.
You know, we can talk all we want about who's going to be the candidate in 2002. In 2022. But whether or not the losing candidates and the losing people are going to accept the credibility of that election, you know, is what determines whether or not you're going to have violence.
You call it a charade. Yeah. Is it our place as well? And there are undertones in our reportage that we could say this is a political game to edge out one main player.
Well, I think it's
and whether or not you agree with that player or not, that's not the point.
Right.
But just to call it out.
For the media's role, in my view, is to stand in the place of the ordinary Kenyan.
Yes.
You know, and to be able to honestly say when political games are being played, when people are doing things that benefit them and then trying to frame them as if they are for the benefit of the rest of us. You know, and I think that the entire thing from the handshake onwards was simply not questioned. It was politicians essentially taken at their word, you know, and and it just keeps on rolling, you know. So we had talk of a referendum, you know, way before everybody knew what a referendum was about. You know, what was actually going to be the question. No, we want referendum, we want referendum. To do what? You know, as you yourself mentioned, we've got a constitution that to date is unimplemented in many serious aspects, you know. And again, there's no talk of how do we implement it, it's let's change it.
Yes.
You know, and for me, this is all, I think, quite problematic.
Yeah. Dennis, I'm at 11 o'clock. I need to take a break. Don't say I'm silencing you.
No. I just want to react to what he said. He says there was a ruling that was done by the Supreme Court in August that said our election was faulty, which is true. But there was a decision of the Supreme Court in October and November which said the election was okay. So basically, when we quote the Supreme Court, let's quote it in its wholesomeness. Number two, which is very important, we have to understand that President Kenyatta had good intentions with the handshake. It is Raila Odinga and ODM who have hijacked it and used it to divide Jubilee. For instance, he's putting his house in order now and forgiving rebels, while seriously dividing Jubilee.
But you make it sound like President Uhuru Kenyatta is nowhere in the picture in the political gimmicks.
I think I've addressed myself to that issue. Finally,
is he
the
or
nation,
is he not?
The nation, which has
the Daily Nation,
which has effectively become a Ruto pamphlet, has intentionally, like for instance today, they quoted the numbers in the press conference at Serena, which was an ODM press conference, and said, and when they quoted the numbers and said there were over 70 MPs at Serena. But when they spoke about the members who gave a press conference, who are Jubilee members in Parliament, there was no reference to numbers.
The 150 was
take the Nation today and show me.
Was quoted.
No.
Is that because it makes that side look weaker?
That is just no. I mean, look for the Nation right now and show me where it says that.
Yes.
That's number one.
I'm talking about NTV.
As I came here,
yes,
the NTV, where you say you work, did a story
where I work
by Olive Barros.
Yes.
And in the story, they say the story was about a government against itself. In the story, they bring in Deputy President saying that as Uhuru Kenyatta remains silent in the background, the Deputy President has become desperate. Really? Who did you call? In all the stories, by the way, done by the Daily Nation and NTV for the last 3 days, none of those stories bothered to even lift a call. Call either Emmanuel Talam, the Deputy President himself, or even David Mugonyi, the people who are mandated to speak for him. But you went out with stories that basically, including today, saying the Deputy President is desperate. Desperate for what?
Desperate for the place he had with the
so Mark, you're actually saying the Deputy President is desperate?
I'm asking, given the same line that you're saying.
No.
Don't throw it back to me.
NTV story has said he is desperate.
Yes.
Where is the evidence in the story of the desperation? You can't say the Deputy President is desperate because he has raised an issue about his life.
The optics of it, of course, I wouldn't say that you would, of course, agree with that word, the use of the word desperate.
It's not optics.
Is everything?
Don't reduce it to optics.
If you were to say, if you were to pick the phone call and say, "I am desperate,"
but journalists are allowed to make judgments.
Yes.
And they can see from what's happening on, and they can make a judgment, and they can say, in our view, this is desperation. I don't have personally
in an analysis piece. But when you in an analytical piece, but when you do a story that is about facts, analytical pieces and opinion pieces, that is why pages exist, and that's why talk shows exist. For this kind of things. It was not a news feature. It was a news story.
In all honesty, that story was analytical as well.
No.
I mean,
it was analytical because
that sounds to me like a piece of analysis.
Okay, even if you have to say, even let's take it. Let's take that the piece was analytical in nature.
Yes.
And therefore, he was looking at what different people have said, and with the conclusion that the Deputy President is desperate. In that story,
with the judgment.
Just a minute. In that story, there is only one upsound of the Deputy President, and in that upsound, it is brought in to justify the issue of desperation. And what is he saying in the upsound? He is saying my life is in danger. How is that desperation?
Well, that's a desperate call for the protection of my life. If I feel it's in danger, that's a desperate call.
Okay. But the story is a government fighting against itself. And the story, let's go back to the script of the story. Olive Barros did a script on a government fighting itself. What does the story start by saying? It starts by saying that there is a fight between Jubilee and ODM. Then it goes further to say that both press conferences were attended by Jubilee lawmakers. It's debatable because first, in the ODM press conference, there are only 2 Jubilee lawmakers who basically may have moved to ODM by all means and purposes. But let's move beyond that. The story then went to another upsound, which then tried to show that there were demos today across the country that show that the Deputy President is trying to look at a certain way to get into power. Then, just a minute. Yep. Then it concludes on the third frame by saying that Uhuru Kenyatta has been on the backside working on Jubilee, working on BBI, but the Deputy President has been out desperate. What is the context? the context is BBI. When the deputy president then says about his life, he has not mentioned BBI. You take that, put it in an analytical piece about BBI, and say that the deputy president is desperate. That is that is a low form of journalism. Okay. Because in essence, if it's an analytical piece that focuses on BBI, then show the desperation in BBI.
Well, I mean, I think journalists can make judgments based on what they observe, etc. And I think it's quite valid for them to make that judgment. You don't have to agree with it. I'm sure many people don't. I'm sure others, many others do. But that's part of the job of the journalist, Okay. So for me,
when we come back, Dennis and the rest of the panelists will also look at how it's played out in history. It's not the first time this thing has happened in leadership. It's played out before. And in all honesty, Dennis, if I was to come and say my life is in danger, that is a desperate call. I would call that as such. But let's come back and have
BBI. If you say is desperate about BBI, give an upside about BBI.
Yeah, but he's desperate about his life as well. In the context of what is at play politically.
No, we'll discuss. We'll discuss the issue of bring it back. His life, about his life, and see how desperate.
And we'll even play that bite that he said, Dennis, and of course get to historical perspective. This is not the first time this kind of thing is happening. History repeats itself. Stay with us.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth. Dentists recommend Sensodyne to their patients. It's able to get inside the tooth and calm the nerve of the tooth down. And the proof's in the results. It works.
Looking to enjoy sumptuous meals and drinks at affordable rates? Welcome to Nasco's. Our diverse menu gives you a variety to choose from. Visit us at Veteran House 4th floor, Moi Avenue, or along Mombasa Road at the Nation Printing Press Center. We offer outside catering service and do home and office deliveries. For inquiries or to place an order, call 0700-613-902 or email info@nascos.co.ke. Nation Staff Consumer Society Limited. Enjoy our hospitality.
For the first time ever, Kenya's biggest loves comes to South Sea. Saturday, 14th March, it's the Churchill Show recording, live at the MOW South Sea Sports Club grounds. Big loves, lots of fun, and more fun. Featuring all your favorite comedians, hosted by Churchill. The VIP tickets go for 2,000 shillings, VIP 1,000 shillings, and regular 500 shillings. For your advance ticket, dial *229 *29#.
But ukiona mtu ameseviwa kama wa kinyozi.
Saturday, 14th March, Churchill Show live recording for the first time in South Sea at the MOW South Sea Sports Club grounds. A night of Kenya's biggest loves.
Oh, ule demu wa Churchill ndio huyo. Waachana na hizo vitu.
See you then.
Welcome back. Let's just have some of the sentiments that were aired by the Deputy President over the weekend, in the recent weeks, actually. And he spoke very strongly about the institutions he feels are being used, targeting him and also to scuttle his progress in many ways. And he actually threw it out there. If you want him, go for him. Don't, go around in corners. And that is in my way of putting it. But let's listen to what the Deputy President had to say.
If they are men enough, let them come forward and face me. Let them not hide behind shadows and behind telephone calls.
Now, Sylvia, as I throw it to you, you've been in the newsroom years back, even with the other regimes, and you've seen such political games play out. Mm-hmm. In your view, is this unique to the Deputy President?
This is quite typical, especially within the African political context. If you remember the case of Saitoti, Saitoti had been built to be the successor to Moi, and everybody knew it. He was well prepared for it, and it was like just a matter of passing the baton.
Yeah.
And then at the very last minute, when everybody thought Kanu was calling a meeting to actually name him successor, mm-hmm. the shock was thrown on everybody when Uhuru Kenyatta was then named as Moi's successor. Mm-hmm. And the shock in the nation at that day, I remember the late Kamotho called it Kichinjio Kasarani. That is how he called it, because it was like people had gone to the slaughter in Kasarani. And I reported that event that day. And I remember even as journalists were just shocked because it was totally unexpected. Mm-hmm. And this very same thing happened with Mwai Kibaki. I don't know how many of you remember that Mwai Kibaki resigned from his presidency, from the vice presidency, because of too much pressure. Mm-hmm. So this is very, very typical. And I think the only difference between what is happening here right now and what happened back then was that our current DP is fighting back.
Yes.
Yeah. In the two cases, actually, the two, Mwai Kibaki and Saitoti, just decided to call it and just go and take a low profile and move on with their lives.
And in fact, in one of the pieces, and I don't know if you agree with having such pieces in terms of just bringing some historical context, this is by John Kamau.
Yes.
And just to quote part of it, it says, over the years and as Kenya's vice president, Saitoti had learnt from those before him, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Joe Murumbi, Moi, Mwai Kibaki and Josephat Karanja, to never challenge his boss, Daniel Arap Moi. Thus, of all KANU hawks, and they swarmed like locusts, Saitoti ranked at the top in singing praises of the Nyayo regime, mostly as a survival tactic. This is quite a piece just to help you see that it's played out.
It has played out. And even if you look back, all the way back to Jaramogi and all the different vice presidents we've had through history, this has been like a continuous thread. That usually what happens is, if you're the kind of like when Moi was vice president, what he did was just toe the line and really try and be there just to execute whatever wishes of the president. So one of the reasons actually people say that Moi actually got the presidency was because he kept his head down. So people kind of assumed he wasn't able to do certain things, or they just assumed he's a very quiet guy down there and they thought they could ride over him. So that was the strategy that worked, because by taking him for granted, that's where he found his strength, because he was then able to come back and become the president. But history has shown that being a vice president or deputy president in this country is a very, very dangerous thing. It's like, you talk about the curse of being a deputy president, that normally that's where you end. And I think the interesting thing about the current scenario that we have is that our current deputy president is not taking it lying down. So I think that's why many Kenyans are looking at this thing with a lot of interest. Personally, I'm looking at it with a lot of interest, because I reported those two vice presidents and saw what happened to them.
Yes.
And it is quite an interesting scenario.
With that historical perspective, and Gadara, even seeing that Saitoti had the case of the Goldenberg scandal on him, and there's a lot of cases, and Itumbi says we become a daily Ruto. And there's a lot of cases, we call it graft, and Ruto's name is there. If we do see a trend of this fight of graft being deliberately used to fight the deputy president and not being genuine, is it our place to call it out? Not that we're protecting deputy president or agree that he has a clean slate, but call it out for what it is.
Yes, I mean, I don't think that there is, I mean, it would be a false choice if you're told that you either have to say that the fight is on the up and up and the deputy president is wrong, or that by accepting that he is somehow corrupt, that you're vindicating the fight. No, I think it can be the case that he has integrity issues and the fight against corruption itself is politicized. You can have both of those things.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it is very much the duty of the media, as I said before, to stand in the place of the Kenyan, of the ordinary Kenyan, you know, and to call out things as they are, as they see them. You know, unfortunately, what our media does is it gets caught up in the politics, in playing the game. You know, so what you do is you privilege all this rhetoric and all these shows. In fact, what you've done is you've turned politics into Kenya's sort of soap opera. You know, every guy is waiting for the next episode, and there's always a cliffhanger at the end. You know, it's what's going to happen to Ruto, you know. And if you look at even serious issues when they are raised, you know, so fight against corruption, we don't really have a serious interrogation of what that is, what that means, you know, so that it's taken as if the president can stand up and say, let's fight corruption today, as if that is his job. You know, when he says people should be arrested, whatever, as if that is his job. In what sense is the DPP independent if he can be directed by the president? We should be fighting corruption either way, regardless of what the president wants. That is a construction of the Constitution, you know. But we sit and we get enraptured by the political gamesmanship, you know. So we don't ask whether the president is actually doing his job, you know. His job is to put in place policies, you know, that ensure, for example, gaps that lead to money being stolen are eradicated. But we have NYS 1, NYS 2. IFMIS is being used all the time. That's not being fixed. We're just being told there's prosecutions.
Yes.
You know, so we're not asking whether the president is actually doing his job. We're expecting him to do the DPP's job.
Do you agree with the sentiment? Like, so for instance, the Daily Nation has become the Daily Ruto. And in that, as you answer that, we're playing into as well the trap of making someone larger than life, because they say bad publicity is good publicity anyway.
Before the 2017 election, the Daily Nation was called the Raila Daily. You know, that in fact, not just even the Standard, guys were saying every headline had to have Raila in it, you know. And the thing is, what the media is doing, I don't think it's taking sides. For me, that's, I think that's a bridge too far. But what I think it's doing is privileging the drama.
Yes.
So they'll put Ruto there because it's dramatic, you know. Let's look at how he's fighting with Raila. It's this gladiator show. You know, in ancient Rome, when Caesar had a restive population, you know, guys were asking for real tangible things. We want food, we want this. What he would do is he would put on a circus, you know, and that was a show. Bring in gladiators, guys come in, they watch, they enjoy, and they say Caesar is a nice guy. You know, that's what our politicians do. They give us a show, and the media privileges and broadcasts this show. So we are all enraptured by that fight. We forget what our real issues are. And those are the real issues that will come to bite us in the ass later on.
Yes, and Dennis, would you agree with the stories that are being brought back in terms of historical perspective and the curse of Kenya's vice presidency?
Okay, before I go to the slighter,
as you get into your, you get your pitch.
Before I get into your slighter frame, there was a clip played.
Yes.
Which informs this discussion and reaction. In the clip, the deputy president is speaking about the system and telling them that if they really want, they can come after him.
Yes.
So the question is, who is this system? It's a cabal of people who sit in government but act informally on several issues. And this system, there's only one person who, in my knowledge, came face to face with it, and that's President Uhuru Kenyatta before the 2013 election. And he ended up telling us those guys are demons. The other person who has complained about the system is Raila Odinga as Prime Minister. And when he complained about it, he complained about lack of carpets and lack of toilets. The Deputy President is complaining about the system, but about his life. Everyone has a view about the system, but only one man here is complaining on a serious issue, which is his life. And by the way, why this is very important is because the President and the Deputy President have a it's a constitutional issue. The security is a constitutional issue on them, so that if the Deputy President or the President dies today, it has a constitutional implication. Therefore, them raising issues about their life is a very important issue to note. Anyway, however, I would like to note, that matter. I would wish to know that indeed, if the deputy, I do not know whether the Deputy President has taken this complaint to the door of the President, and if yes, if the President has taken time to find out what security issues his Deputy President faces. And that is very important, because this is not the first time that the Deputy President has raised the issue around his security.
Okay.
There was the issue he raised in Lamada. The DCI and Ruto Daily did not ask for the CCTV that was involved in Lamada. But that's not a worry. We have a video. We know a PS sitting in this government stood in that meeting and threatened that they would deal with William Ruto the same way they dealt with George.
You have the evidence.
I have the evidence. I have the video. As
a digital secretary for State House, guys, did you release that?
Yes, I'm not only talking about it in NTV. I spoke it before a capable court of law.
That's very well. I'm asking you as a digital secretary for State House.
But I told the court I am interested in playing it. It's a court that never gave the orders. So
why don't you?
Partly because the issue is I've tabled the video in court, and it's part of a larger case. Once that's determined, and that will be determined, I'm sure, within the next 2 months, be assured that it will play not only in my platforms but in 18 other websites that are ready to play it. That said, yeah, hold me to it. That said, there is a PR system that exists between that cabal of system and another smaller system within Daily Ruto.
Anything wrong with a communication system? You're part of system, what you call yourself a system, in fact.
It is a communication system that's aimed at spreading misinformation while benefiting the people who craft the misinformation.
Is it at State House?
The system operates informally outside government structures. And I've already mentioned to you, for instance, in Lamada, there was a PS who stood in that meeting. By the way, I not only have the video of the meeting, I also have a video of 2 people who attended that meeting. And by the way, Kimani Ichung'wah, who attended that meeting in Lamada.
Government people?
Yes. By the way, Kimani Ichung'wah, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, was in this station 2 days ago during sidebar.
Yes.
And he told your colleague Ken Mijungu that when he complained about his life, the system withdrew his security. That is how the system behaves. However, I was saying, Daily Ruto and that system have an unholy alliance. Number 1, this is a story. Kenya, Fred Matiang'i, profile of Uhuru, Mr. Fix-It. Writer, John Kamau. George Kinoti, Kenya crime, Mr. Fix-It. Writer, John Kamau. The enigma of Kibicho, from Varsity Dawn to Mr. Fix-It. All these 3 men are Mr. Fix-It for government. And these stories run on the background that before anyone is arrested in this country, a story is given to the media. Even in my own case, we were told FBI was here, they had investigated, and they had given a report to the DCI.
Okay.
In court, DCI was asked, just a minute, DCI was asked a direct question. Was FBI in Kenya for this investigation?
I've given you ample time. Yes.
DCI said, no, there was no FBI. Yet, the media headlines ran on FBI being here. It is a continuous collaboration between a system in government and some few editors in Daily Ruto.
Oh, so it's a system in government. Initially, you said it's an informal system.
These people work in government, but they work informally to deliver whatever they have.
Yes, jump in.
I think we're in danger
and
of
finally,
it becoming
some people appear on headlines like many other people do, but some people appear on headlines for history.
I think you're in danger of this becoming sort of a political propaganda broadcast. I think there are certain things I would have a problem with from what Dennis was saying. I mean, for example, if the deputy president feels his life is in danger, we have organs of government that are tasked with his protection. It shouldn't be the case that he needs to go running to the president to demand things. In any case, the Constitution bars the president from directing the affairs of the police. That's left. The IGP is an independent office, at least when it comes to the execution of his function. So I think you've got people in Parliament. If they've got a problem with how the IAG is running the police, then they should go and raise it there. You can get rid of him, from there. You can compel the president to remove him, And I think that when we sort of concentrate these things on the political sphere, is where we are playing the political game, So there are institutions, there are organs, So let's deal with those organs. Let's use them. If they are failing, if your deputy president feels they are failing, then there are mechanisms.
It cannot be my deputy president. It is your deputy president.
No, I didn't say you. I said if the deputy president feels these institutions are failing, then he has options to go and do it. So I don't expect that he needs to be going back. The second thing I will say is this talk that we have, it's constantly repeated that we've got cartels, we've got deep state, we've got cabals that always remain nameless and faceless, And I think that they are just red herrings, and they're red herrings to cover over the misdeeds of the public officials who actually hold office. It's not the cartels that steal, it is our public officials. And then they come up with this sort of bogeyman of a cartel so that we don't blame them. So my thing is, I think we need to take those people into account. If, for example, as you say, a PS was in this place, I would say name him, report him, Let's see demands for investigation. If it's not happening, then take that up.
Yes.
So this idea that somehow we've got public officials who are unable to do anything because of a cabal, this ghost-like thing that scares everybody, I don't buy it. So we need to insist people do the jobs for which we pay them. People do the things that we task them to do in our constitution, in our laws, and if they're failing to do it, we've got mechanisms and we've got other institutions that are tasked with holding them to account. And if they are not doing their jobs, those are the people we should be going for, not sort of hunting in the shadows for sort of.
Sylvia, you had a response to
so for me, first I just want to say, Dennis, I think it's important when we are making comparisons or making statements about people who have led this country that we should be fair. So, for example, saying that the only thing that Honorable His Excellency Raila Odinga has complained about is to do with the carpet and whatever is not a fair comment. Let me tell you, it's not a fair comment because historically, the man has been, in the throes for this country for many years. So, I think it is fair that we compare like with like and not try and sort of diminish what other people have done. But I want to say that I find it really, really crazy. I mean, our country is full of so many intrigues that the second most powerful person in our country can complain about the system. So what am I supposed to talk about as a normal, ordinary Kenyan? Who is this system? If the second most powerful man in this country can say the system is after him, which system? So I think that we're using words and situations to just make a fool of Kenyans,
Yeah,
really.
and this is actually not new. I remember in 2008,
yes,
during Raila's homecoming in Kibera,
yes,
you had a bunch of government ministers, this was during the height of the maize crisis, who were threatening to lead demonstrations against the government. And I was asking, who is the government? Is it you guys?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think these are just bogeymen that are created. Because if you've got an issue with a particular public official, let's deal with that public officials, not sort of invent people in the shadow.
Actually, Gasha, I hadn't finished. I'm trying to. What I'm saying is that this country is going through a lot of challenges. The young people in this country have no jobs. Poverty is growing in upcountry, in the rural areas. People are really suffering. I mean, there's untold suffering in this nation, and I think this whole conversation that is just taking away energy from what the government should be doing, from the development projects that are supposed to be happening, the investments that are supposed to be made to help make the lives of ordinary people better. I'm just sick and tired of the fact that we are only focused on the politics. 2022 will come and go, but this country will be here. So my thinking is that we need to, just stop this. We are giving too much attention. And in fact, when I look at the newspapers, it's sickening. Every single day, a story about Ruto, a story about what Ruto is doing. Isn't there anything major happening in this country?
Right.
Aren't there any inventions happening in our universities? Aren't there any major things happening in our country that should be reported?
Right.
Why should we have, look at this story of the Standard today, isolated. We are tired. I'm just saying, as somebody who reads the paper, we are tired of these stories. And I think it is time that the media shifted attention to where it really matters. There's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of, stories that need to be told that are not being told because we have given all our headspace to these political stories. And I think in a way, Dennis is right. You can't wake up every morning, every day. You're waking up to, the same headlines.
Right.
It's almost like they're written ahead of time. So this is a challenge to the media. That Kenyans are getting sick of it. We are all getting sick of it. And we want the story to change. There's so much happening in this country, so much injustice that is happening that is not going reported. There's so many things that, more progressive things that we should be discussing, and now we have given the entire attention to this whole 2022 story. We are 2.5 years. God, how are we going to survive the next 2.5 years? We are 2.5 years away from the election, and yet we are already tired of it.
Yeah,
So,
actually, every time the deputy president goes to a place, he starts by explaining the development that is happening in a place.
Yes.
The media ignores that bit, which is the largest part of his speech, and only takes one or two things that he says about 2022. So the media is to blame. However, you asked a question. If the deputy president is complaining, what is a normal citizen supposed to do? And I have an answer for you.
Yeah.
The deputy president is complaining about he's actually raising an issue about his life. And this is not the first time that the system is frustrating people like that. President Moi.
But you haven't answered what a Kenyan should do then.
President Moi.
You're saying you had an answer.
President Moi was a vice president and in charge of Home Affairs. Then Home Affairs was in charge of police. He was slapped by a police person. Saitoti. It is actually Moi who complained that Saitoti had been poisoned by the system. So when the deputy president says the same, I don't see why we have an
I don't think Moi is a really credible guy.
The issue then here, as I asked you didn't answer, Dennis, the curse of Kenya's vice presidency is a reality.
Well, yeah, vice presidency, but fortunately enough, we have only had one deputy president who is not affected by those issues.
It's more or less the same thing. Deputy president,
it is not more or less. One is elected, one is appointed. World of a difference, my friend. World of a difference.
Okay, let me rephrase it then, because you seem to be hooked on semantics.
It's not semantics. No. You cannot get away with that. It is not semantics.
The second in command.
He's the second in command.
Yeah, so what are you saying about
the curse of Kenya's second in command? Do you agree with that?
Mwai Kibaki became president. Daniel Moi became president.
What he has faced.
So, I mean, they eventually
went to that destination. 2 out of 9. That's a pretty poor record.
All right, Dennis. But as you call yourself the director or the digital secretary.
I call myself, I am.
The digital secretary at State House.
Yes.
You are not able to call out the system that you say is in government.
But Mark, I have spent time here showing you how.
Call out. Are you saying it's Matiang'i? Because you've said you've quoted a story of Matiang'i. Yes.
Yeah.
You've talked about Kinoti.
Mark, I think you're intentionally not listening to me. I told you the only person
I
who
am
came,
listening to you very clearly as you bring out the headlines.
As I bring you system of facts.
Headlines.
The only person whoever came face to face with the system is President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2012. And he addressed TNA delegates in Bagathi and told us, because I was part of that meeting, he told that meeting that our watu ni madimoni, mashetani. So I have never met this system, but President Uhuru Kenyatta has met the system. I will also tell you this. I know the offshoots of the system and their evil schemes. And the offshoots of those schemes is a PS who told Lamada that they would make sure that the deputy president does not become president, just like they did to Saitoti. The offshoot of that system is a system that takes away security from MPs when they complain about their lives being in danger. The offshoot of that system are a prefecture. Harambee House prefects.
That's a system that was taking security from ODM guys when they had an issue.
Yeah, it is the same system that,
come on.
It's the same
that
system
was withdrawn clearly by the...
It's the same system.
Yeah, it's a government that withdrew it.
It's the same system that worked on ensuring, it's the same system that PM Raila Odinga complained that it was not getting toilets and carpets.
No, when the security was withdrawn.
Let me ask this, in the stories that are being done, and it's just to draw the attention and actually in a way call out what is happening right now, the political games that are happening, that people are saying they're tired of, simply tired of as Kenyans. And yes, we're doing a disservice if that is what we're dealing with or dwelling on. Itumbi, is this all accurate as we draw the picture of a deputy president who's being boxed out with the handshake, the BBI? I'm just asking you a straight question. You can tell me.
We're back to this headline. Isolated by the Standard. And then he's isolated because there is President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga speaking to each other, and a picture of him alone. This picture that is used here, on this particular day that this was used, he was in Embu with millions of the Hustler Nation people. But intentionally, the Standard refused.
So you don't agree with any of the stories that actually
I do not agree.
Drawing the picture and the patterns of being boxed out politically and calling out what is happening, telling the Kenyans this is a political game that is going on.
I actually like that you say that Deputy President is boxed out politically. Now, politics, in my view, and I've interacted with politics for quite a while, in my view, is about only one system, the system of the people of Kenya. Every Thursday or Friday to Sunday, the Deputy President is with the people of Kenya from Lokichogio to Kilifi.
Isn't the President as well?
From Kedaraine,
isn't the president as well?
To Nairobi, to Eldoret, to Naivasha. The deputy president has only one system.
Contradiction.
You're contradicting yourself. You've just talked about the system that is going after.
The very fact, I think Sylvia, don't misquote me.
Yes.
I have clearly said there exists a system in NTV. I have said there exists a system inside government, a system outside government, and I have said the only true system is a system of the people of Kenya, the Hustlers Nations. Those people,
Dennis, we are listening to you.
Those Hustler Nations is with the deputy president.
And not the president?
You cannot box me.
And not the president? Because you're really stuck on the deputy president, not the president?
On what? The deputy president and the
system
president are elected on a ticket. Uhuru Ruto are with the people of Kenya.
They
are elected on a Jubilee ticket.
This here is the whole problem we have. You see, Dennis will always win this fight, because you're playing his political game. You're not discussing the substance of what he is saying. And this is what your politicians do. Basically they lead the media by the nose. And they point BBI and they all run. Media runs and takes pictures of that, and that becomes the issue. They point Ruto, they point Raila. Because we don't actually sit back and ask, all right, what is in it for Kenyans? What are the issues?
Sticking to the issues.
So we keep forgetting, so a good example is Agenda 4. When's the last time anybody spoke?
The deputy president spoke about it on Sunday.
And what you find is we are always distracted from these things. One of the things I'll say that Ruto did at the beginning of 2013 2014,
Yes.
just after he took office, that I gave him credit for, was that he said corruption is a systemic problem. And he came out and he said it. And then he went quiet about what that system is that needs to be fixed, and how it needs to be fixed. But our media doesn't sit back and ask. Those are not the issues. The issue is whether the war on corruption is being used to fight him. It's not whether it's actually doing or fighting for us.
Yes.
And that for me is the biggest betrayal of the Kenyan media.
To the people of
that
Kenya.
We created a constitution that gives you space, and there's a reason we guard that space.
Okay.
You're the only industry that actually gets special treatment, and we say we are going to defend it. Yet we find that the space we have created for you is now not used in the service of us. It is used in the service of your own profits, which I suppose is legitimate, but also in a real disservice in terms of disinforming. Disinforming perhaps is the word. In terms of distraction, rather than actually focusing people on what the problems they're facing are, on what the systemic roots of those problems are, what needs to be done to fix them.
Okay.
We get caught up playing this political game, which Dennis is pretty good at, but for me, I see very little value
in it.
In it. I see very little value in telling me DP has been here, there. That for me does nothing.
Okay.
How are the problems we have being addressed? What are the proposed solutions? What are the proposed platforms?
And we hope to stay true to that. Yes.
Yeah.
And Dennis, you said we can hold you to giving the evidence in what, 2 weeks, 2 months?
Once the court issue is settled, if it's settled tomorrow, be sure I'll play it. If it's settled the day after, I'll play it. But let's not say the DP has not, or the president hasn't been speaking about what they're doing.
Okay, you've said it. Okay, let me hold you on that.
They have launched electricity. I mean, surely. You cannot come and say that by going to the people, then they are doing nothing.
You've had your say, Dennis.
Yeah.
Yes,
Actually, I wanted to say that one of the things that the media has to get back to is its original agenda setting role. Because what it has done is let smart people like Dennis and those who work in government be able to set the agenda and determine the narrative that we are having right now. I want to go back to the system and to just remind Dennis what the system has done. The system has made sure that millions of Kenyans have gone to bed hungry tonight. The system has made sure that millions of children are not even able to go to that so-called free primary school. I visited one public school recently. They have 100 kids in a class with one teacher. 100 children in a public school. How is one teacher even supposed to manage that? Is that really what we were thinking about as we're thinking about Agenda 4 and other critical policy instruments the government has? So the system is making sure that Kenyans just continue to go by. As in, the voice of the citizens is lost. There's no opposition now in this country. So whatever is happening with everybody at the top feeling very nice about themselves.
Shame on the system.
So what I'm saying is this. As the media, we have a responsibility to put a spotlight on those situations that the Kenyans are going through.
Right.
It is our responsibility to make sure that those guys who at Parliament and wherever remember why they were elected. And the system is doing everything to put a smoke screen on everything so that Kenyans continue to go by and they continue to earn their fat salaries, they continue to enjoy life.
Right.
So that, for me, is the reason why we need to deal with that system.
All right,
and as Gachagua said, there's a lot of crazy things happening behind the scenes that the media should be putting a spotlight on.
Let's hope that we'll live to this particular challenge and expectation to the nation. As has been said, the Kenyans have been betrayed by the Fourth Estate. Let's hope that we will get back on track and just do our jobs, basically. And I'd like to thank Sylvia for your time. Thank you, Dennis, for your time. And thank you, Patrick Gadara. for your time as well.
But
and
of course, we can't discuss that because the system works with a few people in the nation.
Okay.
So those issues cannot come out.
All right, and that's just to be clear. Just to be clear, Dennis. Just to be clear, Dennis. It's 11. It's 11 for.
No, I agree. I sent you a clip. You promised it was on your running order.
Yes.
We come here. You've played along. You know, I will verify. We come here. You make sure that is not.
Very well said.
The DCI.
My bad on that. Then
DCI pamphlet.
No.
It's okay.
No, Dennis. My bad on that.
We understand
you say no. Let's be very clear.
The family has said the DCI has been very clear that there were 3 people.
No one
in
dismisses
house.
that particular story.
And Safaricom.
And yes, it's not any small. You're clearly here to set an agenda.
Dennis, unless of course the nation is not interested in ensuring
the show
that
has
the
ended.
matters of Kenei.
And thank you for your time.
It is
thank you, Patrick Gadara, for your time. Thank you, Sylvia, for your time. And this is where it ends for today. Apologies, we didn't have time to cover everything that was expected. There's a lot to be discussed, and hopefully we'll be back next week. And take your criticism and critique. Many people have written and said you're pleased or not pleased by this particular discussion. Thank you for your candid views. That's why we're here. We're here to learn and grow. Have a good night.
This is NTV.
For the first time ever, Kenya's biggest loves comes to South Sea. Saturday, 14th March, it's the Churchill Show recording, live at the MOW South Sea Sports Club grounds. Big loves, lots of fun, and more fun. Featuring all your favorite comedians, hosted by Churchill. The VIP tickets go for 2,000 shillings, VIP 1,000 shillings, and regular 500 shillings. For your advance ticket, dial *229 *29#.
But ukiona mtu ameseviwa kama wa kinyozi.
Saturday, 14th March, Churchill Show live recording for the first time in South Sea at the MOW South Sea Sports Club grounds. A night of Kenya's biggest laughs.
Oh, ule demu wa Churchill ndio huyo. Waachana na hizo vitu.
See you then.
I don't got time for no one if they slow me down. Every time that I drop, guess they know me now. So this means we get to play.
Very little time until all of Western Europe is absorbed, is taken by the Soviet Superman.
Look alive, Lanterns. We've got incoming.
All the way. Yeah, look at that consistency.
Two toes down, two toes down, two toes down.
Two toes down, two toes down.
What now?
Nyumba zetu ziwe safi, mavazi na mili zetu.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more. Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Nimetiwa mbaroni.
Tosha. Ni kweli nyinyi mmenikosea sana, haswa wewe na mume wako. lakini mimi si mtu wa kulipiza kisasi.
Leo namtaka mume wangu ama nitamuua puto.
Yule mrembo si Nabila.
Na yule uko naye Jabali wangu. Tulia bro.
Tulie vipi?
Sikize Jabali wasema ukweli.
Na wewe usinichemshe. Usinichemshe. Nikafikiri uko njama moja na huyu mwanao Nabila. Na hili jitoto ile ambalo sura mbovu. Yaani wewe umekosa mtu wa kupenda. Unkwenda penda hili jiduluvula hili. Haya kwenda ukupelekeni nyele zenu kwa mkatie kalikiti.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Looking to enjoy sumptuous meals and drinks at affordable rates? Welcome to Nasco's. Our diverse menu gives you a variety to choose from. Visit us at Veteran House 4th floor, Moi Avenue, or along Mombasa Road at the Nation Printing Press Center. We offer outside catering service and do home and office deliveries. For inquiries or to place an order, call 0700-613-902 or email info@nascos.co.ke. Nation Staff Consumer Society Limited. Enjoy our hospitality.
Sasa Wakenya mnajifanya mutaki hii pesa. Malaria inamalizanga na how much? Hata waje hiyo. Unajua mtu anaweza kataa hiyo 400k alafu ukufe njaa.
We don't look at what we eat. We just eat to keep on going.
Kianza alisema alitumia 700k, right?
Yeah, for the whole
wewe nitafute utavinda kupeleka mbio upoteze hiyo.
Welcome home to Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
I've been a sinner, hata maji niliombwa nikasema